Creating a portfolio piece that actually shows your problem-solving skills can feel overwhelming, especially when you're staring at the blank screen, not knowing where to start. But I have a good news for you. There's a simple, repeatable way to think through it. In a moment, I'll walk you through the exact steps I follow to create effective scenario-based e-learning. Hi, I'm Eva. I'm an instructional designer, a Peck Academy graduate, and a former special education teacher who transitioned into IT. When I was building my portfolio project, the hardest part wasn't the tools or the visuals. It was actually figuring out a strong idea for a scenario-based project that would show my problem-solving skills. What I've learned is that you're not just coming up with an idea, you're solving a real business problem. And that same skill, identifying the root cause and designing a solution, is something I do every day in my role as an instructional designer. In this video, I'll show you how to turn a real-world problem into a scenario idea so you can come up with a portfolio-worthy scenario-based project of your own. Let's get into it. Let's start with where strong scenario ideas actually come from. When you're coming up with your own scenario-based portfolio project idea, start with real context, something that you're really familiar with. One good place to look is your own workplace experience. Think about questions that come up again and again, steps that people often skip or miss. Also moments where there is hesitation or confusion, because those patterns, they point to real performance gap and are really strong foundations for scenarios. To give you an example, when I was a special education teacher, a common challenge was consistency. Staff was handling the same situation differently, even though clear routines should be in place. But ideas don't have to come only from work. You can also get inspiration from everyday life. Things like customer service experiences, traveling or navigating unfamiliar systems, or interacting with a child camp or coaching staff. Anywhere where you notice this friction between what should happen and what actually happens is worth paying attention to. Another great option is talking to people around you. Ask your family or friends about common problems they see at work, what issues keep coming up, or where a better decision would make a difference. Those real examples translate really well into scenario-based e-learning. Designing from situations you've already experienced makes it so much easier to create more realistic challenges with meaningful decisions and likely consequences. It also shows your practical problem-solving skills as well as job-ready design thinking, which are skills that employees look for in instructional designers. The first step is identifying the real-world performance need. Ask yourself, what's not working on the job? Where do people struggle to perform? And why is it important? And these work best when there are problems that you've seen firsthand. For example, new hires feeling overwhelmed during onboarding, or employees that are skipping steps in a process, or decisions that are being made inconsistently because of the pressure. One quick note before we move forward. E-learning isn't always the best solution for every performance problem. In some cases, other interventions make more sense. However, when e-learning is appropriate, scenario-based learning can be a very powerful solution. To make it more concrete, let me share with you my personal experience example. When I was a market researcher for a beauty clinic company, the recurring issue wasn't the product knowledge, it was ineffective selling. Consultants regularly missed opportunities to upsell or cross-sell products or services, and that directly impacted sales. And that problem wasn't unique to that company. It's actually quite common across many customer-facing roles, which makes it really strong foundation for scenario-based project. You probably have so many ideas. Share them down in the comments. Once you're clear on the real performance problem you're designing for, the next step is being very intentional about what success actually looks like. Instead of thinking what people should know, think what they should do differently and how success performance actually looks like. Because our goal is to change behavior in order to solve the identified problem. Let me show you what I mean by directly connecting the problem to the goal. For example, if the problem is missed upsell and cross-sell opportunities, the goal isn't learn more about products. The goal is asking better questions during customer conversations. If the customer consultations are ineffective, the goal is identifying needs before making recommendations for products or services. And if there are some price objections that stop the sale, the goal becomes acknowledging concerns and explaining long-term value. Thinking this way will help you define the success in terms of observable behaviors, not just abstract outcomes. Once you've identified what success looks like, you can start creating an action map. Action map starts with a goal in the center and maps out the observable actions needed to reach a goal. Action map focuses only on observable and measurable behaviors, instead of just listing content that doesn't drive performance. Action mapping helps us tremendously to focus on behavior change. Let me orient you to this action map before we go any deeper. As you can notice on the left side, highlighted in yellow, we started from our goal. From there, we listed plenty of observable behaviors that people take on their job that help them reach the goal. As you probably noticed, some of them are highlighted in a different color. Those are the behaviors where people struggle the most on the job, the ones that they need the most practice with, and the ones that we'll focus on in our scenario-based e-learning. I will link my portfolio below so you can explore this action map in more detail. I will also include the link to my final scenario-based project so you can see how this action map directly shaped the scenario. As you saw, there were lots of actions in my action map. But for a learning experience, it's so important to keep the scope focused. Not every action needs to become a decision. Instead, think of actions where mistakes happen most often and the ones that have the biggest impact on reaching the business goal. Those are the actions that are worth turning into learners' decisions. Once those critical actions are identified, they translate directly into your scenario. Each action becomes a decision point, which in e-learning usually means a question where the learner needs to choose what to do next. A correct answer usually shows the behavior we want to see on the job, and the incorrect options usually mirror the common mistakes. The consequences show what would actually happen on the job based on the learner's choice. Let me show you how this all comes together by walking you through a part of my flagship project. This is the very first screen learners see in my scenario-based e-learning. I intentionally started with end goal in mind. In my case, the business goal was increasing sales by effective upselling, cross-selling, and handling customer objections. So my scenario starts with a positive outcome. We can see a happy customer exiting the clinic with a bag full of cosmetics. I wanted the learners to see what the success looks like before they step into the scenario themselves. The idea is that if the learner can practice those types of behaviors in a scenario, they are more likely to apply them on the job, which supports the business goal. I've decided to use the storytelling technique to let the learner know who they are, what the goal is, and to set up each scenario. I let the learner choose their own character, and they can name the character, and there is a story. They receive the email. Email informs us that tomorrow we're going to start a new job as a beauty clinic consultant. Our mentor provides us with the goals for this learning experience, and as you can notice, they are directly connected to our action map. You'll notice that the 3 scenarios I have in my project are those 3 highlighted in yellow. Just a quick reminder of connecting the problem to the goal. In this project walkthrough, I'll show you this second example where we need to make a personalized recommendation of a product or service, but based on the individual's needs. Our first client has arrived. Here we need to make a decision about the most effective question in recommending products or services to the client. I've decided to ask the client if she may be interested in any special promos or discounts. So here is our character asking the question. And we see the client's reaction. She is mad. She is not interested in promos. She came with a different purpose, and right now she doesn't want anything. Let's see what happens next. We see our mentor not being happy about our work. We see the review. This affects not just us, but the image of the clinic. But we can try again. This time, we're going to choose a correct answer. Before recommending a product, we should know what result the client expects. So we're asking the question, and we see that our client is very happy because she noticed a pattern in other clinics that consultants, they are not very interested in clients' needs. They are just there to sell a product, not really personalize their recommendation. So she is very happy. And we still have a chance for a successful sale and a good review. If you want to experience the full project and see each action turned into scenarios, I'll link my portfolio in the description. Now it's your turn. Think about a real performance problem you've seen. Define what successful performance looks like, and notice where people tend to make those critical decisions. I encourage you to try sketching out your own action map, just like the one I showed you before, just to make those actions and decisions visible. Hopefully, this video gave you a clearer way to think of scenario ideas and made this whole starting point feeling less overwhelming. And if you're interested in taking this solid scenario idea and turning it into more immersive and cinematic learning experience, I encourage you to subscribe our channel, because next week we'll have a video that dives deeper into development. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and check out my portfolio and see how I approach my work. Thank you so much for watching.